lecturer of transitional justice at the American University of Afghanistan. Really good to have you with us. Firstly, what do we know about when the alleged mastermind of this attack was killed?
Hi, Oscar. Thank you for having me on. We don't have verified information. Most of the information we've heard has been from anonymous sources from both sides, the United States and the Taliban. So it has been in the past few days. We have heard stories of the families of the Marines that were killed in the attack having had this information for a few days now. Either way, the Taliban are in an interesting catch-22 where they do want to fight groups like Daesh, but they're also scared of legitimizing Daesh's claims against the Taliban of being in cahoots with the United States, which just shows that the Taliban are still obsessed with trying to delegitimize Daesh's claims against them. Whereas there should be an effort of changing mindsets within the movement that it's okay to normalize relationship with the United States. Maybe that would be a start of fixing a lot of the other issues that the Taliban refuse to fix, such as fundamental human rights that most often their leaders claim are Western agendas. Maybe this is a good start of normalizing things.
Yes, explain to us, Obaidullah, the presence of these groups like Daesh in Afghanistan. What are they trying to achieve in the country?
Well, pan-Islamist groups have existed in countries like Afghanistan and generally fragile states. Jihadi Salafist groups tend to thrive in such settings. And the goal here has been that the Taliban are an illegitimate government, that they do not aspire to establish a global caliphate, which is something that they take upon themselves, and they justify their killing of Taliban members based on that. So far, we've seen that this was one common ground between the United States and the Taliban, this one common enemy. Most of the Taliban claims of advances against Daesh and killings of their members were unverifiable. They were one-sided from the Taliban. But we have seen a drastic reduction in attacks by the group within Afghanistan. Whether that's a tactic from them of laying low or they have actually been affected by the operations the Taliban have been committing is something we will see. Last thing is this does show a very high level of coordination, information sharing between the United States and the Taliban. Either there was joint information with regards to the operation or there was some mechanism for US officials to verify this kill, which is, again, a good measure because this is a good starting step for trust building. Security has always been a common ground for both entities.
Yes, we know the Taliban has been in power since 2021 now. Explain to us more broadly how the Taliban rulers are currently perceived in the country. We know they've been considered pariahs by much of the international community, but how are they governing Afghanistan at this point?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Economically, the numbers don't look bad. Afghanistan has finally reached a low equilibrium with regards to its economy. They have been doing good tax collections and custom collections. However, there's very little transparency as to how that budget is then spent. On the other end, security wise, we had a dip in the past few months. We are seeing improvements. But you have to realize and contextualize that the nation was coming out of a 20-year conflict. Even if the Taliban were the main protagonists, they were willing to accept whatever cost the peace came at. So we have an absence of violence, even if it's not a positive peace. But the longer the Taliban take in clarifying fundamental things like the constitution, like a government for Afghanistan, like the opening of schools for girls and universities for women, and the establishment of not only an inclusive government, but a mechanism, a rule of law within the country. All of these things, every day that passes, the Taliban used to say that the West might have the watches, they have the time. What they need to realize is that is not true anymore. Now that they're in a position of power, they don't need iteration anymore. They need to give results as soon as possible, else the nation will lose hope. And once that grievances reach another level, Afghanistan has seen more than enough regime changes in the past, and we will only see another conflict ahead of us.
Okay, Obaidullah Baheer, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us as always. Thank you.